Before we begin, take a deep breath and let the noise of the day slowly fade. Unclench your jaw, soften your eyes, and let the weight of modern life melt away. Tonight, we're not chasing action or drama. We're wandering into the forgotten corridors of boring history, where medieval echoes linger and dark tales unfold like fading ink on parchment. Welcome to Midnight Sleepless, a resting place for tired minds, where the Middle Ages, ancient empires, and strange, dark history stories drift by like soft clouds. Here, knights, castles, and quiet empires return, not with a roar, but with a whisper. Let me know in the comments, where in the world are you listening from, and what time is it there? And if you enjoyed these slow, sleepy journeys through medieval times, boring facts, and forgotten worlds, a gentle tap on the subscribe button helps keep this calm storytelling alive. Now, in the early hours of the morning, long before the rooftops glow with a touch of rising sun, the world smells of damp earth and straw. The courtyard is still in shadow, and the silence is broken only by the faint splash of water in a basin, the gentle sweep of a foot against dust, and the creak of wooden yokes as they are lifted into place. This is the hour when the mud brick workers begin their day. You are one of them. You do not live within the city's limestone walls, or serve within the cooled halls of a noble's house. You rise with the laborers who build those homes mud-smeared, sun-worn, and seldom named. Your work is not carved in stone or etched into papyrus, but your hands have shaped the walls that hold other stories. Today begins, as most do, beside the mixing pit. The scent here is thick, earth darkened with water, chopped straw drying in piles, and the sharp tang of sweat already beginning to rise from the effort around you. The pit is a low trough cut into the ground, wide and lined with drying mud. You step into it barefoot, your feet sinking into the cool, heavy mixture. The mud is dense, smooth in some places, gritty in others. You begin to walk the length of the pit, again and again, the same slow, churning motion that presses water, soil, and straw into a workable mass. There is no rush. The bricks cannot be made faster than the sun allows them to dry. You and the others know this, and so you work with rhythm, not urgency. The morning light begins to rise above the clay walls, and the sky softens into dusty rose. A flock of birds passes low, their wings rustling the air with the sound of worn linen fluttering. After the mud has been walked smooth, you begin shaping. Wooden molds are stacked nearby square, simple, their edges darkened by years of use. You press a mold into the pile of clay, scoop a heavy mass into the frame, and smooth the top with a wetted plank. Then the mold is lifted, slowly, cleanly, and the new brick is born soft, heavy, and already beginning to harden as the dry air whispers across its surface. Each brick is like the last, same weight, same size, same hue of sun-baked earth. And yet, each is different, subtly shaped by hand, by pressure, by the angle of removal. You arrange them on the drying platform in neat rows, spacing them so the wind may move gently between them. You do not speak much during this work. The others around you are men and women of few words, their movements practiced, their hands calloused. The sounds are enough: the wet thump of clay, the slap of the mold against the ground, a slosh of water carried from the canal. A boy brings fresh straw from the outer yard, its scent dry and sweet. You scatter it into the pit, stirring it with your feet. Bits of it stick to your arms, your knees, your wet tunic. You no longer notice. The mixture thickens, darkens. It is ready for more bricks. As the morning continues, the rows grow longer. The bricks will dry for several days beneath the sun, and then be carried stack by stack to the building site. There, a house will be formed. Not for you, of course. Your house is made of older bricks, some cracked, some softened by time, but you will build a new one. You always do. In what houses they are dot. You have seen their plans, marked with string. In the dust, narrow entryways, central courtyards, rooms for rest, storage, prayer. You have watched walls rise under your hands, watched water channels carved into floors, watched thresholds shaped with bricks you pressed just days earlier. Sometimes, after work is done, you walk past those finished homes. You see their whitewashed exteriors, their painted doorposts, their wide awnings hung with linens that flutter like temple flags. You do not stop. You do not enter. But you look hand in your chest. There is not envy, not quite, but something slower. Something like wondering. But there is pride too. Not spoken, not displayed, but quiet and constant. You know which corner of a house will stay cool in the sun because you built it with bricks, mixed longer, laid tighter. You know which roof will hold up through the first heavy rain because you reinforced its base with extra layers of mud mortar placed just before sundown. You know where the weight lies, where the stress begins, where the cracks will try to grow. These things are not taught in schools. They are learnt in the silence of repetition. You continue through the morning. Bricks forming under your hands, rows growing long and neat. The sun climbs higher. The shadow of the palm trees near the wall shifts, stretching now toward the east. A woman passes with a jar on her head, glancing toward the pit with indifference. She does not slow. You wipe your forehead, drink from a shared gourd of warm water, and press the next mold into the clay. And as the shape rises once more in your hands, heavy, damp, and glistening, you pause and think, not with resentment, not with longing, but with quiet steadiness. If a home gives shelter to a name, is the brick that holds it remembered too? The sun leans high now, drawing long shadows behind the rows of drying bricks. The courtyard air is heavy with heat, pressing gently down upon your shoulders, your arms, your breath. Yet the work continues, steady, rhythmic, without complaint. It must. You move now from the mixing pit to the wheelbarrow. The first rows of bricks are firm enough to carry. Their surfaces are no longer wet, but their cores still hold the cool memory of morning moisture. You lift one, then another, laying them into the wooden cart with practiced care. The bricks are not fragile, but they are not yet stone. They respond to touch, and you have learned how to hold them without leaving a mark. The path to the construction site is familiar, winding through narrow lanes and along the edge of the open field. The wheels of the cart creak softly over uneven ground. The breeze, if it comes at all, is dry and slow, tugging faintly at the edges of your tunic. You pass others along the way, women returning from the well, children chasing one another with branches, an old man weaving baskets in the shade of a fig tree. No one calls to you. You are part of the backdrop, just as the wall, the dust, the sun, at the site. A half-finished home rises from the foundation walls knee-high. Doorway framed, a mound of bricks waiting beneath a linen cloth. You unload your cargo with slow precision, placing each brick near its destined corner, careful not to drop or stack unevenly. The foreman nods toward the north wall. It's where you'll work today. The mortar's ready mud, mixed earlier, thickened with straw, shaded just enough to stay moist. You dip your hand into the basin, scoop a poundful, and smear it across the edge of the first brick. The texture is familiar, sticky, grainy, cool in the center. You press the brick into place, then another. Tap gently with the heel of your hand. Adjust by a finger's width. Step back. Look. Continue. There is no conversation. Only motion. Others work beside you, one laying bricks, another cutting lengths of reed for the window covering, a third preparing the next batch of mortar. You know their names. You've shared water with them, eaten lentils beside them, laughed in the evening when the firelight makes shadows long and friendly. But during work, there are few words. Everything needed is said in gestures. The wall rises slowly. Each brick brings a small change to the space. The sun casts new angles of shadow. The corner catches the wind differently. The light slips through the reed scaffolding in changing patterns. You notice these things, not because you're told to, but because the bricks demand attention. You remember the houses you've helped complete, some large, some small, a few for priests, some for traders. One even stood near the temple gate, with high white walls and lotus carvings along the archway. You weren't allowed inside, but you touched the outer bricks every morning you passed. Remembering where each one sat in your hands, they felt warmer than the rest, sun-soaked, reverent. Now, as the wall climbs past your waist, the foreman pauses beside you. He presses a flattened reed into the mortar liner marker, simple but precise. You nod. The next layer must slope slightly inward to brace for the roof beams. You begin again, adjusting angle and pressure, remeasuring with the flat edge of your palm. A thin layer of sweat beads along your brow. The dust clings to your skin. Your mouth is dry and your lower back aches from bending. Your movements remain slow and sure. You know the strength of a wall is not just in the brick, but in the consistency of its placement. Too loose and it leans, too tight and it cracks. You glance toward the sky. The sun is beginning its descent, still strong, but no longer burning. A shadow moves across the far side of the courtyard as someone lifts a basket of dried figs toward a rooftop storehouse. The scent of dung smoke from a nearby hearth mixes with the air. You breathe it in, not with pleasure, but with the recognition of place. This is the scent of work, of daily rhythm, of the unseen infrastructure that holds a city upright. At the base of the wall, an older man kneels, checking the alignment. His hair is silvered, skin dark and lined. You've seen him work since you were a child. He's never missed a day. He runs his hand along the seam, nods, then moves on without a word. His approval is quiet, but it stays with you. By the time the day's bricks are laid, the wall stands nearly chest high. Tomorrow, you'll continue, then the cross beams, then the outer plaster. And when the house is finished, a family will move, and their lives will unfold between the spaces your hands have helped define. You will not be present when they hang reed mats from the beams, when they store barley in the clay jars pressed into the wall's corners. When they sleep under a roof, you lift it into place, but you will know. You will pass by, maybe often, maybe never again, and the house will stand strong and plain, shaped by those who will never live within it. You gather your tools into the basket, the smoothing plank, the string guide, the reed wedge used to straighten the edge. You wipe your hands on your tunic, dusting off mortar and clay. The wall glows faintly now in the amber light, its surface still damp, but already hardening. And as you step away, tired but unhurried, you glance back at the line of bricks, stacked and set, row upon row, leading up like a memory. If walls could speak, would they remember the hands that lifted them skyward, brick by silent brick? Dusk begins to settle across the village like a soft cloth drawn gently over the earth. The sky shifts from the deep burnished gold of late afternoon into a muted rose, then lilac. The air grows cooler, but not cold, just enough to lift the edges of your tunic as you walk the path back from the building site. It's your hands still carrying the scent of straw, sun-warmed clay, and the faint mineral temps of drying mortar. Your shadow stretches longer now, and for a while, it follows ahead of you, tall, slender, quietly leading. The work is finished for the day. You pass through narrow lanes lined with the very homes you helped construct. Some you built in part, others from foundation to finish. You recognize certain bricks the way they've settled slightly to one side, or the place where a mark left by your thumb remains faint but permanent in the plaster. These are not monuments. They are not temples, but they endure. Not because They were built to be praised, but because they were built to be lived in. Children play near one doorway, their laughter bouncing off the walls you helped shape. A woman sits in the shade with a bowl of lentils in her lap, stirring with a slow, familiar motion. She glances at you as you pass, and though she says nothing, her gaze is not unkind. It is a recognition, not a status, but of presence. You are part of this rhythm. At home, your tools are placed near the wall. Your tunic is shaken free of dust, hung loosely on a peg. A shallow basin is filled with water, cool now with the night hand. You wash your hands slowly, watching the pale brown swirl dissolve into stillness. The skin beneath is rough, the nail beds darkened. But your fingers feel lighter once clean. You eat your evening meal beside the low fire. A simple one. Lentils again, thickened with garlic and coriander, and a heel of barley bread left from the morning. The bread is dry, but you soak it in the stew, and it softens with a texture that comforts. You chew slowly. The food is not for pleasure. It is for replenishment, for grounding. Later. The village falls quiet. A few conversations drift in from the courtyards. A cough, a pot being lowered onto warm coals, a reed broom brushing gently across a stone threshold. These are the soft sounds of a day closing down, of people folding into themselves, preparing for another dawn. You sit outside a while longer, your back resting against the outer wall of your home. The bricks behind you are older, some crumbling at the corners, but they hold firm. You run your fingers along the seams, feeling the layers of plaster, the places where patchwork repairs have smoothed over age. The texture is familiar. The temperature, now cool from the absence of sun, presses evenly across your spine. Above, the sky is now dusted with stars. A thin crescent moon hangs over the rooftops, and a soft breeze rises from the west. You can smell the Nile in the distant damp reeds, fresh mud, and the sharpness of fish drawn in from shallow nets. It mixes with the scent of your day, straw, sweat, and warm earth. Your body is tired in the way that comes from labor, well done, not aching, not sore, just quietly spent. The feeling lingers in your knees, your shoulders, your fingertips. You let it rest there. It is a mark of the hours lived. You know that tomorrow will be the same. The mixing pit, the wheelbarrow, the shaping, the stacking, the rising of walls. Another home, another foundation pressed into the soil, another structure brought into being by hands that will never dwell inside. And you accept this. There is no scroll that records your name, no stone that speaks of your labor. But the homes stand. They shelter. They cool in the heat and warm in the cold. They hold bowls and baskets and sleeping children. They echo with footsteps and laughter and quiet breath. And you are part of that, even when no one sees. You lie back on the mat you've unrolled by your door, hands behind your head, the stars flickering faintly above. The ground beneath you is hard but steady, packed by time, not design. A night bird calls softly from somewhere beyond the date palms. The wind carries it, then stills. You close your eyes, not quickly, but gradually, letting the rhythm of your day fade into the slower rhythm of night. And as you rest there, halfway between sleep and waking, a thought lingers, not heavy, not sharp, but settled, like the weight of a drying brick on warm ground. If no one remembers the hands that built the walls, will the walls themselves remember what it felt like to be shaped with care? The sun has not yet touched the ridgeline when the village of the tomb builders stirs. Dear El Medina, carved into the desert slope beyond Thebes, rests in a shallow basin of dust and stone. The breeze here, when it comes, carries with it the memory of carved rock, powdered plaster, and distant incense burned in the Valley of the Kings. Even the silence tastes of Ashdod. You rise before dawn. As you always do, you are not one of the artisans whose names will be scratched onto the tomb. Walls are preserved in Africa. You are a servant to those who paint the afterlife into the stone, a helper in the shadow of the divine image makers. You fetch, you sweep, you grind, you carry. Yours is the quiet labor behind the art, the unpainted brushstroke that steadies the hand before it meets the wall. The home you sleep in is narrow, its mud brick walls lined with a single mat. A jar of stale beer and a bundle of old linens. It is enough. As the sky fades from black to deep violet, you step out barefoot, feeling the grit of yesterday's dust settle between your toes. The village is already breathing, doors open, sandals shuffle, low voices exchange morning greetings without enthusiasm. It is not that people are unkind here, that they are tired. Your first task today is fire. The hearth must be lit in the workshop, where pigment is mixed and heated into permanence. You walk past rows of whitewashed homes, their walls painted with protective prayers, their windows covered with reed mats to keep the heat and flies at bay. The street is no more than a worn groove between homes, and yet it holds a kind of sacred rhythm. Every foot that walks here, every hand that touches these walls becomes part of the pattern. You reach the side workshop, where broken pots and grinding stones are scattered like forgotten thoughts. In the corner, the hearth sits, dark and quiet. You kneel beside it and begin. Dried straw, a twist of old cloth, a few pieces of charcoal from yesterday's fire. You strike the flint carefully. Sparks dance, land, die. Again. On the third strike, the flame catches. The smoke rises. Slow and blue dot. You feed it gently, coaxing it with breath. In the scent of burning straw joins the dusty air scent that seems to live in your skin now, even when you bathe. You know this fire well. It has warmed the pigment pots of painters, now buried in the tombs they helped decorate. You do not think of this with sorrow, only with stillness. It is the way things are. The painter arrives not long after, carrying a bundle of unfinished sketches on thin limestone flakes. He nods once, sets his bundle down, and begins his work. You hand him the bowl of red ochre you ground yesterday, its surface still holding the scent of iron and sun. He takes it without comment. You sit back and begin crushing more yellow pigment from a lump of orpiment, brittle, sulphurous, staining your fingers with gold. The workshop is dim but warm, the light filtering through a single slit in the plaster, while the flicker of the fire dances across the pigments as they're stirred, watered, heated, and thickened. Each color has its rhythm, its own breath. You do not speak this language aloud, but your body understands it. The painter's brush will glide more smoothly if your mixture is right. And so, you grind, adjust, add water, drop by drop. Later, you ascend to the rear storehouse. There, beneath the shelves of spare chisels and old tools, are the jars of amulets meant for burial. Small faience figures, bright blue, pale green, dusty white shaped into inks, scarabs, protective eyes. You are told to prepare them for the next tomb. This is delicate work. You do not sculpt them, but you clean them, wrap them, line them into baskets so they will not crack. The amulets are smooth beneath your fingers, cool and strangely alive. You wonder about the man they are meant for, an official, perhaps, or a priest. You do not know. The name does not matter to you, it's only the care. You sit cross-legged on the stone floor, humming softly to yourself as you clean each charm with damp cloth. The scent of natron clings to the wrapping linen, sharp and mineral. A quiet rhythm forms. Lift, wipe, turn, place, over and over. These tiny objects, barely the length of your finger, will be placed into niches, tucked beneath wrappings, hidden inside the hollow chest of a painted coffin. You will never see them again after today. The light in the storehouse shifts as the sun rises. You finish your task and return to the painter's chamber, placing the basket of amulets near the wall. He glances at it, nods again. It is enough. At Midday, the sun presses hard against the village walls. You sit in a narrow strip of shade beside the well, eating lentils from a bowl with your fingers. The flavor is plain but filling, thick with cumin and coriander. You drink water from a clay cup that smells faintly of smoke and wet stone. Around you, others do the same. No one speaks much. The heat presses language out of the air. You close your eyes for a while and rest your head against the wall. Tomorrow, there will be more pigment to grind, more fire to coax, more walls to sweep, brushes to clean, bowls to carry. You will help lift the coffin when the tomb is complete. You will step aside when the priest arrives. You will walk behind the men, whose names are carved in paint and stone. Hey, you will carry the tools they leave behind. You will not be named in any scroll. No offering will be left at your feet, but your hands resin-stained, ash-marked. Quick to serve well, live in the folds of linen and the strokes of ochre that lined the dead man's tomb. And as you rise to return to your post, you think humbly, without pride, without sorrow. If eternity rests in painted stone, then who remembers the one who mixed the color? The sun now rests high above the valley cliffs, casting short shadows that cling tightly to the walls of Deir el-Medina. The heat thickens with silence. There is little movement, and what sound remains is soft and measured. The scrape of a chisel, the turning of a grinding stone, the rustle of linen folding upon itself. You are in the painter's chamber once more, kneeling beside the wall where the day's image slowly takes form. Osiris, Lord of the West, arms folded, skin painted in green, his crown carefully lined in black. The brush in the painter's hand moves with practiced grace, but it is your hand that steadies the bowl of pigment. Your breath is slow. You know better than to stir the surface now. The ochre has settled, perfect in thickness, resting like sun-baked honey in its clay cradle. He pauses between strokes, and you dip a smaller reed brush into the rinse pot, swirling it just once before offering it to him. Your timing is precise, not too late. He are not taught these things aloud. You learn them in the pause between footsteps, in the glance of the master craftsman, in the soft scrape of brush on limestone. This is your education, and though your hands may never hold the sacred brush, you have handled every tool that touches it. You have washed the scribe's hands with lotus water. You have oiled the wooden handles to prevent cracking in the dry heat. You have fetched the charcoal for sketching outlines and stirred the crushed malachite that makes the sacred green. The pigment lives because you breathe it into being. Later, the painter hands you a broken shard of limestone and old palette, streaked with dried blue and faded red. Grind again, he says softly, gesturing toward the far wall. You nod, take the stone, return to your place near the pigment basin. The malachite glitters faintly in the bowl, like dust from a crushed gem. You add a few drops of water, just enough, and begin to grind with the rounded end of a smooth pestle. The motion is circular, steady, almost meditative. The scent rises cool, mineral, almost metallic, and fills your nose with something sharp, clean, and ancient. You have no word for it, but you feel it settle in your chest, as if you've breathed in the color itself. Someone enters the chamber, a foreman perhaps, or a messenger from the valley tombs. There is a brief exchange, and then a change in rhythm. You are told to prepare the burial chamber. The one being painted today is nearing completion. Soon the priest will come. You set down your tools, wipe your hands on a damp cloth, and follow the narrow corridor into the tomb itself. Inside is cool and silent, the air heavy with stone and time. The walls are smooth, their surfaces waiting for final touches. The ceiling, low and arched, is painted with stars spit-pointed, pale yellow, glowing faintly in the oil lamp's flicker. You've seen this ceiling many times, but it never loses its quiet magic. It feels like lying beneath the night sky, only deeper suspended inside the memory of stars. You walk slowly across the packed earth floor, careful not to leave marks. Your job now is to clean sweep the corners, gather the scattered chips of stone, ensure the surfaces are free of dust and fingerprint. You kneel and begin, moving with quiet reverence. The broom is made of palm fiber, tied with linen cord. Its bristles are stiff, but they respond to gentle hands. You brush with care, listening to the faint sound it makes across the stone. HFF, chef, SHFF, like wind moving across sand. In the niche near the back wall, the amulet basket waits. You open it and remove each charm, inspecting for damage. The scarabs are polished. The tie-out knots gleam faintly red. The wadjet eyes are intact, their paint uncracked. You wrap them in fresh linen, one by one, and place them in their designated hollows, one near the head, one beneath the shoulder, one in the crook of the elbow. You do not rush. These are not decorations. They are protections. Their placement matters. A shallow bowl of incense is brought in, and you are told to light it. You do so, slowly, carefully, until the smoke rises in soft tendrils of frankincense, mostly with traces of juniper and resin. The scent is deep and sweet, clinging to the air like memory. Soon, others arrive. The coffin is carried in lacquered, painted, wrapped, cute, guided into place, your shoulder beneath the base, your breath steady with each step. Key, the weight is not yours alone. Others lift with you. Key, the room is silent except for the creak of wood, the soft scrape of sandal. On stone. Once in place, you step back. The priest begins his chanting. You do not understand all the words. They are ancient, older even than this village, carried forward like water through carved channels. But the rhythm calms you, and you lower your head. The ceremony is short. The tomb is not sealed yet. That will come tomorrow. But for today, the work is done. You carry out the spent incense, the pigment bowls, the used cloths. You sweep once more, not from necessity, but from ritual. You leave no trace. Outside, the air has cooled slightly. The sun is lowering now, casting long, slender shadows across the courtyard. You breathe in deeply, the scent of resin still in your nose. You return the tools to their places, rinse the last of the pigment bowls, and stack the brushes to dry. The day ends in the same quiet with which it began, and as you wash your hands for the final time, the water running brown with dust and red with ochre, a thought settles over you, not loud, not proud, steady. If the gods bless the painted tombs, do they also bless the hands that swept the floor before the first color touched the wall? The morning after a burial is always softer in tone. The valley holds a hush, as though the stone itself has drawn in a long, slow breath, and now rests. The tomb doors remain closed, sealed with lines of mortar pressed by careful hands. No names are spoken aloud, no stories shared, only the brush of wind against the limestone cliffs and the faint rustle of linen robes betray the world's motion. You walk slowly across the courtyard of the workman's village, past houses shaped from mud brick and time. The walls are warm to the touch, even before the sun has crested the cliffs. A young boy runs by carrying a basket of bread, his feet bare, his laughter quick and high, but he does not look your way. To him, you are part of the place, a shape, as familiar as the walls themselves. The master scribe passes in silence, nodding once. You bow gently, then resume your path. At the far end of the village is the garden of herbs. You've worked here before, pulling mint from the dry soil, trimming the leaves of henna, collecting the sticky gum of acacia. Today, you were sent for myrrh. Its resin will be needed again soon. Another tomb awaits. You kneel beneath the twisted branches of the myrrh bush, your hands moving with practiced calm. The scent rises thick and sweet as your fingers break the bark in slow, careful cuts. The resin oozes in amber drops, like honey drawn from a cracked bowl. Collected in a clay dish. turning each drop gently so as not to lose its shape. The sun rises higher. Its light rests on the tops of the cliffs now. The first shimmer of heat begins to curl upward from the stone. You think of the tomb you helped ready yesterday. The brushstrokes you watched become gods. It's the incense that curled into the vaulted ceiling. The linen that you folded, edge over edge, never seen, but always present. The amulets wrapped by your hands. No one will know your name. Not in the records, not in the scrolls. He will not be buried in a stone tomb. No priest will speak your lineage aloud. But you are not bitter, because the tomb stands in the gods. Painted on its walls, shimmer with life. And you were there. You pass the pot of myrrh to the priest's assistant, who receives it without words. He, wash your hands at the basin outside the temple's edge. Cold water from a ceramic jar, splashed. Once, twice. The dirt runs down your wrists and disappears into the dry ground. Later, in the cool shadow of the chapel, you rest against the wall. The limestone is smooth here, polished by generations of shoulders leaning just so. You run your fingers over its surface and feel the ghosts of those who came before you, other hands, other breaths, other workers, in silence. The overseer walks by and says nothing. You are neither summoned nor dismissed. You exist in the space between orders, the interval, in which rest is permitted and reflection. A loud dot in your lap, you turn a small object between your fingers. It is a bead round, the color of sand, carved from bone. You found it months ago, near the painter's quarters, buried in a cracked jar. It has no value. It bears no name, but it is smooth from long use, and its surface holds the faint trace of red pigment that never quite faded. You press it lightly to your palm. Close your eyes. The tombs will remain long after you are gone. They will be discovered by those who will. Marvel at the paint, the order, the symbols of rebirth. They will name the pharaoh, the architect, perhaps even the master scribe. But your quiet work will lie in every brushstroke, every line of plaster, every inch of swept floor. And perhaps, in some distant time, someone will wonder who mixed the pigment, who stitched the linen, who brushed away the dust before the gods were drawn. The breeze passes again, soft, empty, whole, and with it, the resin of myrrh, the scent of burnt offering, the memory of stars painted on stone. You open your hand, and the bead rolls softly into your palm. You rise. In return, the city wakes before the sun in HARAPPA. In that quiet hour, when only the birds stir and the sky holds a pale hue of ash and faint indigo, the first water carriers step onto the packed clay paths. Their feet are bare. Their bodies are lean and steady. Each carries a looped coil of cloth on one shoulder, where the weight of the urn will rest later. The air is still cool then, with a whisper of dew clinging to the earthen walls, and a softness in the dust that will soon be baked hard by the rising heat. You are among them. The well lies to the eastern edge of the city, near the cluster of communal baths. Its stone mouth is ringed by warm bricks, warm even in morning's chill. Rope buckets lie coiled at its edge, and the smooth grooves along the lip of the well speak of long usage centuries, perhaps. No names mark it, no decorations line its walls, but it is as constant as the sun. You take your turn quietly, lowering the bucket with slow, practiced rhythm, feeling the tension ease with a soft splash of water below. Then, with a gentle tug, you raise it again, muscles working silently beneath your linen tunic. The rope is damp and smells faintly of algae and earth. You pour the cool, clear contents into a tall clay vessel resting at your side. The water is not for you. It will go to the brickmaker's yard, where wet clay must be shaped before the heat of day. Or perhaps to the priest's house, where ritual baths await. Some days, you walk the entire length of the city with 2 jars balanced on a wooden yoke. Today, Only one. As the sun crests the eastern edge of the city, Harappa stirs. Chickens begin to scratch along the walls. The first bakery fires are lit, and the scent of toasting grain drifts lightly in the air. You'll hear the faint notes of a reed flute from somewhere above, perhaps a child playing before chores. The city is not loud, not yet. Its life comes in layers, soft clinks of pottery, distant calls. The low sweep of a broom against brick. You move along the stepped lanes, passing small houses with doorways low and narrow. A woman nods to you as she sweeps her threshold, sending dust softly into the morning light. The smell of turmeric and onion drifts from a nearby window, still uncooked, but already warming the air with memory. In your arms, the jar shifts gently. Its weight presses against your hip, but you do not adjust it. You've carried hundreds like this. You know when the slosh of water means the jar is full to the lip, when it must be tilted just so to keep it from spilling on uneven stones. Harappa is a city of rhythm. Its bricks are laid in even, orderly lines. Its drainage runs along every street, covered and clean. Its baths are square, its steps identical, its granaries vast and measured. And your feet know the route between water and work like a song remembered in silence. You arrive at the potter's yard, where the morning heat begins to rise from the kiln. He greets you with a tilt of his head and wordlessly accepts the jar. A cloth-wrapped parcel waits in return, cooled barley cakes and a handful of dried dates wrapped in leaf. Payment for service, unchanged in years. You bow gently, then turn. The city behind you stirs more fully now. A vendor sets out dyed cloth on a low cart. Hey, goat bleats from a rooftop garden. Two children run past with laughing shouts, their feet barely touching the ground, and the well waits again. You will return, but first, you rest in the shade of a narrow lane, the stone still cool beneath your legs. You sip from a smaller cup, one you carry for yourself. The water is sweet and faintly metallic. It tastes like morning, like brick dust and wet rope, and the promise of noon. Above, a bird circles once, twice, then vanishes beyond the rooftops. You breathe in slowly, and the city breathes with you. Later in the morning, the sun rests directly above, and with it comes the shimmer of heat that settles low along the bricks and rooftops. The city of Harappa no longer whispers, it hums. You feel it through your sandals as you walk, a gentle vibration of labor, chatter, and footsteps over 100 pathways. Clay jars clink gently in courtyards. Wooden wheels creak. The sound of grain grinding against stone carries faintly from the merchant square. You carry your next load of water toward the communal bathhouses, where purification rituals are part of the city's everyday rhythm. It is not a temple, but it holds quiet reverence. The steps are scrubbed daily, and the walls smell of clay and damp limestone. The bath's brick-lined basin glimmers faintly in the sunlight that filters through its high windows clean. Silent, still. There, the priest awaits. He nods once as you lower the heavy vessel beside the bathing pool. No words pass between you, only the scent of incense from a nearby altar and the cool echo of water finding water as it is poured. You were given a smear of sandalwood paste across your wrist, a gesture of thanks. Its scent stays with you as you leave, woody and light. Even as the dust gathers on your feet once more, you turn again toward the well, passing rows of terraced homes. Children now sit in doorways, stringing small shells into necklaces or shaping dolls from leftover bits of fired clay. An elderly man crouches on a stool, weaving red baskets with fingers darkened by years of dye. His doorway smells of turmeric and damp rope. You nod in greeting. He offers a toothless smile and returns to his work, not hurried, not idle, just steady. You pause beside a drainage channel and watch the water run clear, a marvel of the city's design. Beneath the surface, small leaves drift, caught in the gentle flow. The channel turns beneath a stone slab and disappears beneath a row of houses. Even the waist in Harappa moves with order. When you reach the well once more, the line is longer. Others have compadres, healers, a young woman with a baby on her hip. She hums a soft song, no words, just a tune carried through her breath and the rise and fall of her steps. The child sleeps despite the brightness of the day. You step into line behind a boy no older than 10, who glances at your empty jar and offers to trade places. You shake your head softly and wait. The moment arrives, again your turn. You lower the rope, damp now from hours of use. The grooved pulley creaks. The water slaps softly against the sides of the bucket as it fills. The scent rises to meet you cold, metallic, tinged with silt and stone. You pull it up slowly, spill the contents into your jar. The weight settles again against your side, familiar and honest. Your next stop is the weaver's house. Her family is large, her orders constant, her looms working even through midday. She works by a low window, hands flying in practiced rhythm, bright cloth spilling in folded waves onto the floor. The threads carry dyes of blue and red, pale gold, deep brown. As you arrive, she sets down her shuttle and gestures to the shade. You rest briefly in her courtyard, drinking a cup of tamarind, water offered without ceremony. The taste is sharp and cool, and it tightens your jaw before the sweetness arrives. The weaver speaks little, but she always asks if the well runs true. You answer yes, always yes. Even in the dry moons, the water has never failed. She hands you a length of thread-dyed cotton, frayed at the edges, wrapped in banana leaf. A gift, she says, for your mother's loom. You thank her and rise. The wind has picked up slightly now, rustling between the walls like a soft brush through grain stalks. A light cloud of dust lifts from the road, coating your skin in a film, so fine you do not bother to wipe it away. You begin the slow walk back once more. There is no rush, only rhythm, a quiet circle. Each time you leave the well, it is as though you carry part of the city in your arms. Not just the water, but its needs, its rituals, its breath. And each time you return, it feels like a kind of returning to yourself. Afternoon wanes slowly in Harappa. Shadows stretch longer, casting thin, soft outlines beneath eaves and along alley walls. The sharp heat of the day begins to soften, and with it, the water carrier's work eases into its final rhythm. You sit now by the edge of the western well, smaller than the mornings, near the outer grain courtyards. This one draws fewer visitors. Its bricks are older, rounded smooth by weather and wear, their edges cool to the touch. The air here carries the scent of chaff and sun-warmed grain dry, slightly sweet, dusted with the faint aroma of sesame husks. In the distance, the low murmur of market voices trails into quiet. Stalls are being packed away. Spices are folded into cloth. Scales and weights are nestled back into carved wooden chests. A boy chases a dog down the street, laughing breathlessly, while his mother calls to him from a second-floor window. The calls are not sharp, but round-edged, like the city itself, and hurried. Lived in, familiar. Your jar is empty, resting on its side beside you. Washed and waiting for tomorrow, you feel the day's weight in your arms, not heavy, but present. A good weight, it's a kind that earns its sleep. You recall the many places the water has touched, how the baker sprinkled it into flour before kneading the morning's bread, how a widow cupped it gently to rinse a clay lamp in memory of her husband, how it hissed into silence as it met the lip of a kiln, cooling the air for one breathless moment before rising again in smoke. Water. This city is never just water. It is ritual. It is rhythm. It is quiet. You turn your gaze upward. The sky has shifted to a soft gray, with streaks of deepening amber brushing the western horizon. Overhead, Birds wheel in slow arcs, circling the rooftops before settling into the folds of the day's end. One calls out once, sharp but brief, then falls silent from a nearby home. The smell of boiling lentils drifts outward, dirty, nutty, flecked with the heat of cumin and ginger. You know the woman there. Her husband is a dye worker. Her child once gifted you a small clay toy, hand-molded into the shape of a buffalo. You still have it, hidden in the folds of a wall niche near your sleeping mat. It brings no luck, but it keeps a memory. You rise slowly, brushing your palms against your knees. The path home is familiar. Worn stones, a left turn past the banyan tree, 3 steps across the narrow stream that feeds the lower fields. You do not rush. The work is done. The city has not quieted entirely. It never does, but the sound has changed. It is folded inward. Doors are drawn closed. Lamps are being lit. In one home, a flute sighs, a long, low note before stopping. In another, hands grind spice over stone, the rhythm slow and circular, like the movement of a potter's wheel. You pass through it gently, this closing hour. The scent of smoke curls along the rooftops, soft and woodsy, tinted with resin. It clings faintly to your skin. You let it. These are the smells of the city you serve, and when at last you reach your doorway, marked only by a string of dried seed pods, you set the jar inside and sit on the cool threshold. Not inside, not yet. You breathe, and the city breathes with you. Above, the stars begin to press through the dimming veil of sky quiet. Indifferent, endless. You think of the well. You think of the water. You think of all the hands it has passed through, the silent labor it carries, the way it moves unseen through lives until, once more, it returns to rest in clay, and tomorrow it will begin again. Thank you for drifting through this quiet story. The journey has brought you peace. You're gently welcome to subscribe and return again. If you're still awake, perhaps leave a whisper in the comments. Tell us where you're listening from, or simply say goodnight. Now, close your eyes, if they haven't already. Let the dust settle, the dew gather, and rest, as the water carriers once did. Long ago in HARAPPA, it begins long before the sun dares to rise, before the golden light slips over the palms and rooftops of Memphis, and before the city stirs with traders and scribes. A small corner of the workers' district glows faintly from within its ovens, still warm from yesterday. The scent here is distinct, earthy, and ancient. Crushed emmer wheat, dusted stone, and the sour tints of rising dough mingle in the stillness, hanging in the air like breath held in quiet anticipation. You wake in the dim light of the slave quarters, beside the communal bakery, not to a sound, but to the pull of habit. Your back is still sore from yesterday's rhythm, but your hands move before thought returns. There is barley to grind, ovens to stoke, and dough to form before the rest of the city so much as opens its eyes. You are one of the invisible gears in the daily machine that feeds the people, nobles, priests, guards, even other slaves. Everyone needs bread. The small room you share with 5 others smells of sweat and flour, of dried reeds and ash. The mat beneath you is woven tight but thin, and the wall beside you plastered mud and strawfers, little to block the night's chill. But you are used to this cold, and soon the heat of the ovens will flush it away. Outside, the sky remains a dark slate. Only the faintest pink bleeds along the horizon. You step out with your grinding stone already in hand, joining the others under a low awning where a large pile of grain waits. Your feet crunch softly over chaff and grit. No one speaks yet. Voices will come later, in low tones and brief exchanges. For now, your morning begins with weight and rhythm. Grinding grain is a task as old as Egypt itself. A saddle corn rests before you 2 stones, one flat and heavy, the other round and smooth. You kneel, place a handful of grain in the center, and begin to move the top stone in a slow, firm arc, forward and back, forward and back. The kernels crack softly, releasing the scent of starch and dust. Each breath brings the flavor of labor into your nose and throat. You do not count the hours. There is no clock, only the feeling in your arms as they begin to tighten, then numb. The grind is steady, almost meditative. A song hums faintly in your head, not sung aloud, just remembered. Perhaps you heard it from your mother once, long ago. Before your days became measured by flour, bowls, and firewood, the ground barley collects into a shallow wooden tray. Coarse, uneven, but sufficient. Will be mixed with water, sometimes beer or milk if supplies allow, then patted into loaves and shoved into the brick ovens. You have learned over time how the dough should feel slightly sticky, but not too wet, elastic, but not overly firm. You cannot read or write, but your fingers know the language of bread. The bakery itself is a low structure of mud brick, nestled against the worker quarters like a warm stone tucked beneath cloth. Its ovens are built dome-shaped, blackened with soot, mouths wide and waiting. By the time the first fire is lit, the horizon has begun to pale into soft ochre, and a light breeze carries the scent of date palms from the fields beyond the river. Birds begin their quiet morning calls, soft clicks and chirps, while a donkey brays somewhere in the distance. Muffled by walls and sleep, you move the loaves gently into a reed basket lined with flour-dusted cloth. They are not yet baked, only shaped. Later, when the fire settles into glowing coals, you and the others will lean close, faces warm, arms outstretched to place them inside. It takes skill to judge the fire's readiness without burning your arms or over-crisping the bread. You've seen it done poorly before: bread blackened beyond eating, or too pale to hold its shape. You've learned, not from books, but from repetition, error, quiet correction. The first loaves are always for the overseer. That's the rule. He will come when the sun crests the low walls, wrapped in a faded robe, grumbling about lateness, even when you're early. You will hand him his bundle with lowered eyes. He will not thank you. He never does. And yet, there is something gentle in this morning ritual, something soft in the way the fire crackles and the loaves rise. Despite your station, despite the sore arms and the dust embedded into every line of your hands, you sometimes feel briefly as though you are a kind of maker, not of gods or gold or great deeds, but of sustenance. Quiet, daily sustenance. You are not named in temple records or tax scrolls. You will not be buried with canopic jars or wrapped in linen prayers, but someone will eat your bread today. Guard will take his ration and chew it silently. A woman will place a round loaf before her husband and child. Priest will break off a piece to accompany his morning beer. And all of them will be nourished by labor they will never see. The sun at last clears the rooftops, casting warm light onto the pale walls. The grinding has ended for now, but the day is only beginning. There are ashes to sweep, bowls to wash, and ovens to tend. And through it all, the scent of barley and firewood will follow you on your skin, in your hair, in the lines of your palms. As the courtyard stirs and voices rise, you pause briefly, watching the shadows shrink, and you wonder quietly, without urgency, how many mornings must pass before one remembers they are part of something larger. The day warms quickly in the narrow courtyard, and with it, the rhythm of labor changes. The first baking cycle has passed. Loaves have been removed, some golden, some too dark. A few will be saved for temple offerings, others wrapped in linen, scraps for delivery to officials nearby. The rest, the standard fare, will be piled into baskets, slung onto shoulders, and carried beyond the gate to those who wait. You, however, remain behind. There is more grain to grind, more dough to knead, and another round of baking to prepare before the sun reaches its highest point. This is not work done once. 'Tis a loop that circles back again and again, from dawn to dusk, with only brief pauses for water and a bite of your own bread. Always the broken loaves, or the ones baked too hard to distribute. Inside the bakery, the heat has deepened. The fire's breath has filled the small chamber, and the walls, made of ancient mud and straw, pulse faintly with warmth. The air smells thickest ash and smoke, mingling with the coarse scent of ground barley. It clings to your hair, seeps into the fabric of your tunic. You wipe your brow with the back of your hand, leaving behind a smear of flour in the corner. An older woman shapes dough with the ease of memory. Her hands are leathery, knuckles rounded, skin permanently creased with pale lines of dust and effort. She does not speak unless asked a question, and even then, her voice is no louder than the crackle of the oven fire. Yet, she is respected among the workers. Lived in, familiar. Your jar is empty, resting on its side, beside you. Washed and waiting for tomorrow, you feel the day's weight in your arms, not heavy, but present. A good weight, it's a kind that earns its sleep. You recall the many places the water has touched, how the baker sprinkled it into flour before kneading the morning's bread, how a widow cupped it gently to rinse a clay lamp in memory of her husband, how it hissed into silence as it met the lip of a kiln, cooling the air for one breathless moment before rising again in smoke. Water. This city is never just water. It is ritual. It is rhythm. It is quiet. You turn your gaze upward. The sky has shifted to a soft gray, with streaks of deepening amber brushing the western horizon. Overhead, birds wheel in slow arcs, circling the rooftops before settling into the folds of the day's end. One calls out once, sharp but brief, then falls silent from a nearby home. The smell of boiling lentils drifts outward, dirty, nutty, flecked with the heat of cumin and ginger. You know the woman there. Her husband is a dye worker. Her child once gifted you a small clay toy, hand-molded into the shape of a buffalo. You still have it, hidden in the folds of a wall niche near your sleeping mat. It brings no luck, but it keeps a memory. You rise slowly, brushing your palms against your knees. The path home is familiar. Worn stones, a left turn past the banyan tree, 3 steps across the narrow stream that feeds the lower fields. You do not rush. The work is done. The city has not quieted entirely. It never does, but the sound has changed. It is folded inward. Doors are drawn closed. Lamps are being lit. In one home, a flute sighs, a long, low note before stopping. In another, hands grind spice over stone, the rhythm slow and circular, like the movement of a potter's wheel. You pass through it gently, this closing hour. The scent of smoke curls along the rooftops, soft and woodsy, tinted with resin. It clings faintly to your skin. You let it. These are the smells of the city you serve, and when at last you reach your doorway, marked only by a string of dried seed pods, you set the jar inside and sit on the cool threshold. Not inside, not yet. You breathe, and the city breathes with you. Dot above, the stars begin to press through the dimming veil of sky quiet. Indifferent, endless. You think of the well. You think of the water. You think of all the hands it has passed through, the silent labor it carries, the way it moves unseen through lives until, once more, it returns to rest in clay, and tomorrow it will begin again. Thank you for drifting through this quiet story. The journey has brought you peace. You're gently welcome to subscribe and return again. If you're still awake, perhaps leave a whisper in the comments. Tell us where you're listening from, or simply say goodnight. Now, close your eyes, if they haven't already. Let the dust settle, the dew gather, and rest, as the water carriers once did. Long ago in HARAPPA, it begins long before the sun dares to rise, before the golden light slips over the palms and rooftops of Memphis, and before the city stirs with traders, and scribes. A small corner of the workers' district glows faintly from within its ovens, still warm from yesterday. The scent here is distinct, earthy, and ancient. Crushed emmer wheat, dusted stone, and the sour tints of rising dough mingle in the stillness, hanging in the air like breath held in quiet anticipation. You wake in the dim light of the slave quarters, beside the communal bakery, not to a sound, but to the pull of habit. Your back is still sore from yesterday's rhythm, but your hands move before thought returns. There is barley to grind, ovens to stoke, and dough to form before the rest of the city so much as opens its eyes. You are one of the invisible gears in the daily machine that feeds the people, nobles, priests, guards, even other slaves. Everyone needs bread. The small room you share with 5 others smells of sweat and flour, of dried reeds and ash. The mat beneath you is woven tight but thin, and the wall beside you plastered mud and straffers, little to block the night's chill. But you are used to this cold, and soon the heat of the ovens will flush it away. Outside, the sky remains a dark slate. Only the faintest pink bleeds along the horizon. You step out with your grinding stone already in hand, joining the others under a low awning where a large pile of grain waits. Your feet crunch softly over chaff and grit. No one speaks yet. Voices will come later, in low tones and brief exchanges. For now, your morning begins with weight and rhythm. Grinding grain is a task as old as Egypt itself. A saddle corn rests before you 2 stones, one flat and heavy, the other round and smooth. You kneel, place a handful of grain in the center, and begin to move the top stone in a slow, firm arc, forward and back, forward and back. The kernels crack softly, releasing the scent of starch and dust. Each breath brings the flavor of labor into your nose and throat. You do not count the hours. There is no clock, only the feeling in your arms as they begin to tighten, then numb. The grind is steady, almost meditative. A song hums faintly in your head, not sung aloud, just remembered. Perhaps you heard it from your mother once, long ago. Before your days became measured by flour, bowls, and firewood, the ground barley collects into a shallow wooden tray. Coarse, uneven, but sufficient. Will be mixed with water, sometimes beer or milk if supplies allow, then patted into loaves and shoved into the brick ovens. You have learned over time how the dough should feel slightly sticky, but not too wet, elastic, but not overly firm. You cannot read or write, but your fingers know the language of bread. The bakery itself is a low structure of mud brick, nestled against the worker quarters like a warm stone tucked beneath cloth. Its ovens are built dome-shaped, blackened with soot, mouths wide and waiting. By the time the first fire is lit, the horizon has begun to pale into soft ochre, and a light breeze carries the scent of date palms from the fields beyond the river. Birds begin their quiet morning calls, soft clicks and chirps, while a donkey brays somewhere in the distance. Muffled by walls and sleep, you move the loaves gently into a reed basket lined with flour-dusted cloth. They are not yet baked, only shaped. Later, when the fire settles into glowing coals, you and the others will lean close, faces warm, arms outstretched to place them inside. It takes skill to judge the fire's readiness without burning your arms or over-crisping the bread. You've seen it done poorly before: bread blackened beyond eating, or too pale to hold its shape. You've learned, not from books, but from repetition, error, quiet correction. The first loaves are always for the overseer. That's the rule. He will come when the sun crests the low walls, wrapped in a faded robe, grumbling about lateness, even when you're early. You will hand him his bundle with lowered eyes. He will not thank you. He never does. And yet, there is something gentle in this morning ritual, something soft in the way the fire crackles and the loaves rise. Despite your station, despite the sore arms and the dust embedded into every line of your hands. You sometimes feel briefly as though you are a kind of maker, not of gods or gold or great deeds, but of sustenance. Quiet, daily sustenance. You are not named in temple records or tax scrolls. You will not be buried with canopic jars or wrapped in linen prayers, but someone will eat your bread today. Guard will take his ration and chew it silently. A woman will place a round loaf before her husband and child. Priest will break off a piece to accompany his morning beer. And all of them will be nourished by labor they will never see. The sun, at last, clears the rooftops, casting warm light onto the pale walls. The grinding has ended for now, but the day is only beginning. There are ashes to sweep, bowls to wash, and ovens to tend. And through it all, the scent of barley and firewood will follow you on your skin, in your hair, in the lines of your palms. As the courtyard stirs and voices rise, you pause briefly, watching the shadows shrink, and you wonder quietly, without urgency, how many mornings must pass before one remembers they are part of something larger. The day warms quickly in the narrow courtyard, and with it, the rhythm of labor changes. The first baking cycle has passed. Loaves have been removed, some golden, some too dark. A few will be saved for temple offerings, others wrapped in linen, scraps for delivery to officials nearby. The rest, the standard fare, will be piled into baskets, slung onto shoulders, and carried beyond the gate to those who wait. You, however, remain behind. There is more grain to grind, more dough to knead, and another round of baking to prepare before the sun reaches its highest point. This is not work done once. It is a loop that circles back again and again, from dawn to dusk, with only brief pauses for water and a bite of your own bread, always the broken loaves, or the ones baked too hard to distribute. Inside the bakery, the heat has deepened. The fire's breath has filled the small chamber, and the walls, made of ancient mud and straw, pulse faintly with warmth. The air smells thickest ash and smoke mingling with the coarse scent of ground barley. It clings to your hair, seeps into the fabric of your tunic. You wipe your brow with the back of your hand, leaving behind a smear of flour in the corner. An older woman shapes dough with the ease of memory. Her hands are leathery, knuckles rounded, skin permanently creased with pale lines of dust and effort. She does not speak unless asked a question, and even then, her voice is no louder than the crackle of the oven fire. Yet, she is respected among the workers. She knows how to feed 100 mouths with little waste, how to judge the moisture in the air and adjust the flour by instinct alone. You've watched her, day by day, learning without asking. Your own hands are not as skilled, not yet, but they remember more with each sunrise. Today, the dough feels different, softer, perhaps. You knead more carefully, pressing with the heel of your palm, folding and turning, folding again. The rhythm is hypnotic. With each push, a soft squelch. With each fold, a faint puff of flour. The dough sighs as it rises slightly in the warm air. And you find comfort in this quiet reply. There's a small window near the ceiling, more a hole than a true window through which sunlight spills in narrow beams. Dust motes dance there, slow and golden. You glance up between tasks and watch them swirl, weightless and steady, like tiny ghosts of grain. No one else notices, or perhaps they do, but like you, they simply watch in silence. In the storage room adjacent to the ovens, stacks of baskets lean against the wall, their reed strands darkened by years of use. You're sent to retrieve one, and as you step into the dim chamber, the temperature drops slightly. The walls are thick here, the air still. You pass your hand along a low shelf and feel the cool grain beneath your fingertips coarse, dry, rustling like parchment. Among the tools, a broken wooden paddle rests against the wall. You remember when it cracked months ago under the weight of too many loaves. The overseer shouted, but no replacement came. So the bakers learned to work around it. It's a longer pause between batches, more careful stacking. It's quiet resilience stitched into daily motion. There are no holidays here. No feast days for those who bake the feast. When the temple celebrates, you work more. When Pharaoh's name is carved into the stone with praises, you are up before light, grinding the meal for his priests' tables. And yet, there's no bitterness. In your chest only a long, slow, quiet. You do not expect praise, but you do take a certain pride in the small things others do not see. A crust browned just right. Two that rises without cracking. A fire managed so it doesn't scorch. Sometimes you are asked to carry loaves beyond the compound walls. You walk in silence through narrow alleys, past lime-washed homes and reed fences, careful not to drop the warm, fragrant bundles. On such walks, you glimpse the world beyond the ovens, the laughter of market women, the songs of fishermen near, the river, the chants of young scribes learning their glyphs. But these sounds feel distant as, though heard through thick cloth, your world is flour, not ink. Fire, not voice. Back inside, the day stretches. Kneading turns to shaping, shaping to baking. The second batch slides into the ovens, glowing. Mouth, in the chamber, fills again with the aroma of risen crust and toasted grain. A younger worker fans the flame with a palm frond, cheeks puffed with each slow exhale, hair stuck to his temples with sweat. You offer him a sip from your clay cup. He nods in thanks. Words are unnecessary. There is something ancient in this process. Older than the pharaoh, older than the temples. Grinding, shaping, baking, feeding, a cycle unbroken, passed from one quiet generation to another. You are not the first to perform these motions, nor will you be the last. But for this day, the rhythm is yours. As the loaves are lifted once more from the oven's belly and set to cool on cloth-covered trays, you step back, brush flour from your hands, and stretch your spine. The bakery hums softly behind you, like a resting beast, satisfied for now. And as you step into the fading light, you wonder, is it possible to build something sacred from nothing more than flour and fire? Evening comes not with fanfare, but with a gradual dimming the light, softening into the golden hue of baked clay. The heat lifting at last from the walls and earth. The ovens are now quiet, their mouths dark and soot-rimmed. The final loaves have been cooled, counted, and carried off. Your hands are dusted still with flour. But the labor of the day is ending. You sit at the edge of the bakery, where the shade stretches long over the courtyard. The scent of warm bread still lingers in the air, mingled with wood smoke and the cooling aroma of ash. It's a scent that clings to everything: the cloth of your tunic, the creases of your skin, the woven mats on which you sleep. It is the perfume of your life, plain and unremarked upon, yet familiar as breath. Others settle near you, each quiet with her own weariness. The older woman speaks softly to a younger girl, showing her how to shape a loaf so that it does not split during baking. Her voice is low, almost inaudible over the breeze, but the girl listens closely, eyes focused. There is no scroll for this wisdom, no carving on stone. It passes hand to hand, memory to memory, beneath the notice of those who record history. Your own dinner is simple, an extra heel of barley loaf and a few dates, dark and wrinkled from sun-drying. You eat slowly, teeth moving without thought. Each bite is familiar, each texture known. The bread is dense and slightly sour, the dates sticky and rich. You do not crave variety. Hunger asks for little when it is used to repetition. From somewhere beyond the compound walls, the sound of a distant flute drifts faintly on the air, thin and reedy, likely from a courtyard festival or private prayer. The sound does not call for attention. It merely passes, like the scent of flowers carried on a breeze. You close your eyes and let it move through you. In this moment of stillness, you feel the quiet truth of your place. You are not a priest, nor a craftsman. You have no grave marked with symbols, no legacy recorded in ink. And yet, the bread you shape today has become part of other lives. It will be broken at tables you will never see, consumed in temples where your feet may not step. In this way, you exist within the rhythm of the city quietly, anonymously, and without interruption. You glance at your hands again. They are rough, palms lined with flour and calluses. It's not beautiful, but they are capable. They have shaped hundreds, perhaps thousands, of loaves, and tomorrow they will shape more. The sun finally dips behind the edge of the bakery's wall, casting the last rays of warmth across the baked earth. Shadows lengthen, and the sounds of the compound grow softer low murmurs. The rustle of woven mats, the clink of clay jars being settled into place. You lie down on your mat, arms behind your head, staring up at the small square of sky visible between the buildings. Stars begin to flicker above, pale and distant. There are no gods among them tonight. Just silence. Just sleep. Still, you wonder if your hands could speak. What would they say? Not in words, perhaps, but in gestures. In the firm push of dough, in the careful shaping of crust, in the lifting of baskets onto tired shoulders. You wonder if that too is a kind of language. A language without words, passed down not through voice, but through repetition and care. And as your eyes close and your breathing slows, that question drifts into the darkness with you, gentle and unanswered. Can a life made of quiet labor be remembered, not through name, but through nourishment? In the quietest hours of morning, just as the sky begins to pale beyond the high garden walls, the great house rests in a hush that feels almost sacred. The courtyards still sleep beneath their latticework of vine and plaster, and the columns that line the walkways stretch long shadows over the cool stone. Yet within this stillness, life stirs gently behind carved doors in tiled corridors, beneath embroidered linen veils. You rise before the household does, not with urgency, but with quiet certainty. You are a domestic slave in the service of an upper-class Egyptian household, perhaps in the city of Heliopolis or Memphis, perhaps somewhere more provincial, but no less grand. The exact place matters little. The duties remain the same. Your chamber is modest, tucked behind the inner courtyard near the kitchen yard. The floor is packed earth, covered in woven mats that scratch slightly against your feet as you step softly. In the dark, round you, the others sleep still. 3 young women, 2 older men, all rousing slowly like embers, warming beneath ashdot. The air is cooler here. Cool before the sun climbs above the rooftops, and you breathe it in with silent gratitude. It smells faintly of baked brick, of old charcoal, of pomegranates stored too long in baskets, and of the jasmine that grows wild beyond the wall. A calm moment, brief but yours. You light a small oil lamp and move to your first task. It's always the same, drawing water. A cistern in the garden feeds the household's needs, and you lower the clay jar carefully, listening to the soft splash as it meets the surface below. When the jar is drawn up, your arms feel the weight, but you do not strain. Your body knows this movement well. Along the garden path, the sycamore trees sway in the faintest breeze, their leaves whispering over one another like old women sharing secrets. You pass beneath them, jar on your shoulder, careful not to spill. A servant should never be heard. Silence is the expectation, footsteps muffled by smooth stone, breath kept steady, voice used sparingly. Inside the house, the floors are swept clean, already last night's work. The polished tiles shimmer in the lamp's soft glow. Along the walls, murals depict scenes of plenty, harvests, hunts, and perfumed banquets. You pass beneath these painted lives daily, lives of imagined joy and glory, while you carry figs to the mistress's chamber or fold linens in the shade of the veranda. Today, the house is preparing for visitors. You will help lay out the morning. Table dates sliced neatly, honey poured into shallow bowls, bread cut in even pieces. The nobles will rise when the sun reaches the central fountain, and their voices will fill the halls. Yours will not. Yet this silence is not emptiness. In it lives a deep rhythm of knowledge. You know the taste preferences of your masters. Children, you know how much water to mix with the wine before the guests arrive. You know how to fold the mistress's robe so that the embroidery is not creased. You know which servant to avoid when the cook is in a sour mood. These are the secrets not written in papyrus or chiseled into tombs. They live in your hands, in your feet, in your patient eyes. In the kitchen, smoke rises gently from the hearth. As the cook stirs lentils over the flame, you hand her the water jar, and she nods without words. The scent of garlic, coriander, and simmering broth thickens the air, mingling with the dusty sweetness of the morning light. Soon, platters will be carried out by you and others like you, and you will serve them with lowered eyes and careful steps. Later, at the morning meal, you will wash garments in the basin behind the garden wall. The soap is coarse, made from ash and animal fat. It dries the skin, but you have learned to rinse with water infused with crushed herbs to soften your hands afterward. These small rituals sustain you. Some afternoons, your work is done early and the household naps. You may find a moment beneath the sycamore tree. You sit with your back against the trunk, the bark rough but familiar, and watch the branches sway. Birds chirp softly. Bees hum between blossoms. In these fleeting intervals, you are not seen, but you are. By the breeze, by the sun, by the soil beneath you. You do not belong to yourself, not in name nor in law. You were bought, perhaps as a child, perhaps inherited with the property. Your life is recorded only in lists of goods, of staff, of expenses, yet you exist in every clean room, every folded sheet, every polished amphora. You are part of the house's breath, and though your voice is rarely heard, your presence echoes in every corner. The mistress may never learn your name, but she wears the robe you prepared. Her guests admire the order you've helped maintain. The garden flourishes because of the hands that quietly tend it each morning, as the first sounds of waking drift through the upper chambers beyond. A rustle of curtain, the creak of a sandal strap you, gather your tray, and bow your head. Another day begins, shaped once again by quiet motion and soft labor. And as your feet glide over the stone, smooth and sure, you wonder, what does it mean to be the one who prepares beauty, but never claims it? The house has awakened soft voices, echo across the hallways, now some sharp with command, others heavy with sleep. The children of the household laugh in the courtyard, their sandals slapping against the polished tiles as they chase one another around the lotus basin. Their laughter bounces off the stone, light and unburdened. Hear it as you enter with your tray, walking carefully. Each step timed to the rhythm of respect. In your hands is the mistress's morning arrangement. Sliced melon, soft white cheese wrapped in fig leaves, and a bowl of barley honey warmed in the hearth. These are placed beside a small cup of beer light and water dand, a folded cloth scented with crushed mint. The tray is wooden, worn smooth at the corners. You carry it like a sacred offering. She nods when you enter, her eyes barely lifting from the polished bronze mirror in her lap. A servant girl brushes her hair. Another oils her feet. You are one of many here, each of you part of the machine that keeps the house serene. You do not speak unless spoken to. Your task is not to be noticed. Still, you observe, the folds of her linen dress, perfectly pleated. The gold ring she always twists when pensive. The way she prefers her food to be arranged left to right, not right to left. These are the tiny truths that build your silent expertise. Once your tray is set down, you slip away, steps light against the stone. In the side chamber, you find yourself folding fresh linens. They've dried in the morning breeze, smelling faintly of sun and soap ash. The cloth is rough at first, but the more it's folded, the softer it becomes, like old habits. Here, in this folding, this tending, there is a rhythm that lulls the mind. Your fingers move on their own, creasing cloth into neat squares, smoothing corners, stacking quietly. You hear the distant murmur of a priest at the gate, come to offer a morning blessing. The house steward replies, voice low and practiced. You recognize his tone, a careful blend of authority and deference. Later in the day, you will tend the garden near the sycamore tree. There, beneath its wide boughs, you prune the pomegranate bush, gather fallen fig leaves, gently sweep the pebbled path clear of dust. The tree itself is old, its bark carved faintly by time, its branches stretching like open arms toward the sky. You often pause beneath it, not to rest, but to feel grounded. The earth there is soft, always just slightly damp from the hidden channels that snake beneath the courtyard. You dig lightly with your hands, loosening soil around roots, and the scent rises, dark, cool, and mineral. It reminds you that even in stillness, things grow. Even in silence, things live. A house like this does not operate on kindness, but it does, in its own way, run on memory. Not the written kind, not the carved kind, it's the living kind held in the heads and hands of those who clean its corridors, light its lamps, tend its flowers, and prepare its meals. You have known others who moved through this place. An older woman who once oversaw the linens, a boy who fed the birds each morning, but now labors in the vineyard, a cook who left in the night and was never spoken of again. Their names have faded from the household's lips, but you remember that they shaped this space, quietly, invisibly. You think of your own journey here. Perhaps you were born in this house's outer compound, the child of another slave. Perhaps you arrived by boat, traded long ago from a distant place. The memories of that home blurred by years and repetition. You no longer dream of that other life now, because it is forgotten, but because this one has taken its shape around you like water around stone. In the heat of midday, the household retreats. The mistress reclines in the upper chamber. The children rest, their laughter replaced by a hush. You take this time to tidy the shaded veranda. You smooth the mats, brush away fallen petals, refill the jars of cool water set out for guests. Every movement, quiet, deliberate, respectful of the hour. You find a moment beneath the sycamore once more. The shade is deeper now, the light filtered through countless leaves. You close your eyes briefly and listen. The buzz of insects, the distant clatter of a pot, the rhythmic swish of a broom from another corridor. There is no grandeur in this life, no festival of thanks, no offering left in your name. But there is continuity. There is the whisper of cloth between your fingers, the scent of mint on warm water, the soft press of your heel against sun-warmed stone. These small moments are your legacy. They belong to no one else, and in this silence, so full and gentle, you think, if memory is made a presence, then perhaps you are remembered more than you know. As the sun begins its descent and the day stretches into the golden hush of early evening, the house grows quiet once more. The laughter of the children fades. The air cools just enough to lift the edge of the curtains that hang from the veranda's archways. The sycamore leaves above you shift in slow rhythm, casting soft, moving shadows across the courtyard floor. It is a time for stillness, now not sleep yet, but something close. You've completed the final tasks of the day. The water jars have been replenished. The linens folded again after the heat has drawn moisture into their seams, and the garden swept once more. These are the closing rituals performed as instinctively as breathing. Each task seals the day's rhythm with quiet purpose. In the storeroom, you place the last basket into its alcove. The woven reeds are dry and slightly splintered at the rim. You feel them catch lightly on your fingers, but there is no but only the reminder of repetition. You light a small lamp with care, watching the flame flicker, its scent of oil faint, but present. It's glow. This gentle warmth is the only light you'll carry back to your chamber. Outside, in the courtyard once more, you linger under the tree that has watched you for countless evenings. The sycamore's trunk is warm from the sun, its branches gently arching overhead like a canopy of protection. Beneath its shade, you sit without instruction. For this brief time, there is no call to service, no voice asking for more. You run your hand over the dry soil at the tree's base. Beneath the surface, you know its roots stretch deep into the earth, silent, unseen, yet holding firm. You imagine your life here as something similar, quiet, anchored, not visible, but vital in its own hidden way. Far above, the sky shifts to indigo, and the first stars begin to emerge like ancient eyes blinking open. You think of the gods, now not with fear or reverence, but with a calm sort of distance. You've seen them in statues and offerings, heard their names and rituals and blessings, but you do not expect them to speak. You serve flesh and fabric, not stone and sky. Still, you wonder, gently, is this not its own kind of devotion? Your hands worn, strong, graceful in their own way, have laid out the finest linens for feasts, prepared the master's robe with care, pressed herbs into water so that the mistress's feet might be soothed. You've offered beauty to others without asking for it yourself, and yet the echo of that beauty lingers in you. Tonight, the household will eat beneath oil lamps and speak of land and lineage, of taxes and temple gossip. You will remain just beyond the curtain, your presence acknowledged only when needed, and later, when they sleep, you will fold their garments, brush crumbs from the mats, and extinguish the lamps one by one. But here, for now, in the shade of this ancient tree, you feel the hush of the earth itself. You listen to the faint trickle of the garden's water channel, the distant cooing of a dove, the creak of wicker from the upper chamber's balcony. You feel your body ease into stillness, not from fatigue, but from calm. Tomorrow will be the same. You'll wake before light. You'll move without sound. You'll tend to what must be done. And still, quietly, this day will remain with you. Its textures, its rhythms, silences, as you rise to return to your quarters, carrying the lamp, now flickering softly in your hand. You glance once more at the sycamore tree. It does not move, yet it endures. Its roots, like yours, grow deep in unseen soil, and you leave behind a thought, not a question, not a prayer, but something softer. Is it possible that presence, even unnoticed, can become a kind of grace? The Nile begins its morning, not with noise, but with the slow, steady shimmer sunlight sliding like oil across its broad, flat surface. The air along the banks is thick with scent and movement even before the day is fully born. Reeds rustle softly in the breeze, their feather tops swaying like gentle metronomes. Birds call to one another in brief, clipped tones, and insects hum at the water's edge, their song constant but never harsh. You wake beneath a reed roof, woven tight by careful hands. The walls around you are mud brick, cool still from the long night, though they will warm quickly under the rising sun. A faint scent of river silt and dried grass clings to the thatch above your head. You blink the sleep from your eyes, hearing already the shuffle of your father's feet outside, the hollow thunk of a jar being set down on stone, spit, the short cough he makes every morning to clear his throat. You are not a servant in a noble house, scribe's apprentice in a shaded school. You are the son of a canal watcher, borne along the narrow ribbons of irrigation that stretch like fingers from the Nile's embrace into the farmland beyond. Your world is shaped by water, its presence, its absence, its movement through channels and gates, its slow soaking into the thirsty soil. The day begins with tasks, as it always does. You rise from your mat, splash water over your face from a clay bowl, and tie a rough linen cloth around your waist. Outside, the sun has just begun to rise above the palms, casting long shadows that stretch like ribbons across the earth. The air smells of wet reeds, damp soil, and the faint sweetness of early morning fig trees. You join your father near the sluice gate. It creaks softly as he inspects it, his hand rough against the worn wooden lever. The canal must be monitored closely. Water is life here. Too much flow, and the fields flood, drowning the roots. Too little, and the crops wither before the sun reaches its peak. Your father knows every bend in this stretch of channel, every stone that lines its banks, every family who depends on its steady pulse. Your job, for now, is to follow, to carry the small tools, a wicker basket of stones, a folded papyrus with flow records, a gourd of drinking water wrapped in a wet cloth to keep it cool. Your steps are lighter than his, your shadow smaller, your voice rarely needed. You observe, you memorize, dot along the canal's edge. Farmers are already gathering. They nod in your direction, some with respect, others with the familiarity of shared routine. They carry baskets and sickles, and their feet are caked in yesterday's mud. You pass them without speaking, the sound of your footsteps muffled by the thick, dark soil that gives the Nile Valley its fertility. You notice the small things. A broken segment of canal wall, patched hastily with stones. A heron lifting from the reeds, its wings throwing water in gentle arcs. The scent of freshly turned earth as the first plows move through the damp fields. Your senses are full, but not overwhelmed. This world is textured, layered, rhythmic, never still, yet never frantic. At one point, your father kneels beside the channel, dipping his fingers into the flow. He murmurs something about the current, the silt content, the need to divert slightly. Before mid-morning, you nod, storing the thought. It is not for you to act yet, but one day it will be. For now, you are the eyes, the ears, the silent shadow, learning from what is not written. The sun climbs slowly, and with it, the heat rises. The moisture in the air thickens, pressing gently against your skin. You sip from the gourd and pass it to your father. The water tastes of clay and distance, but it cools the tongue, and that is enough. You pause near a small spillway where fish dart between the reeds. The water here is clearer, moving swiftly over smooth stone. Boy your age, waves from the opposite side. You recognize him from the last market day. His family trades onions and lentils. He laughs softly and splashes water in your direction before vanishing into the fields. You smile, though you say nothing. Your task remains. By midday, your linen is damp with sweat and river spray. The scent of warm mud and crushed grass rises around you, thick but not unpleasant. It is the scent of life being worked into shape, one handful at a time. You and your father sit beneath a thorn tree for a brief rest. The branches stretch wide and flat, offering speckled shade. He removes a piece of flatbread from a cloth bundle and breaks it in half, handing you your share without a word. The bread is coarse, baked with crushed seeds, and dry at the edges. You chew slowly, sticks to your teeth, but fills your belly just enough. Around you, the fields extend in quiet beauty. Rows of flax, barley, and emerald wheat stretch into the near distance, their green swaying faintly in the breeze. The canal glimmers between them like a polished thread of glass, winding its way back to the mighty river whose cycles shape every moment of your life. And as you sit in the filtered shade, bread in hand, dust on your legs, and water at your side. A thought arises, not urgent, but steady. When the water flows because of your hands, do you become part of the river too? The heat of midday now lies over the land like a thick linen sheet warm, pressed close, without relief. The air no longer moves. Even the reeds bend slowly, heavy with stillness. You and your father rise from your shaded rest and resume the walk along the canal. The clay path is dry at the edges, cracked like the skin on an old man's heel, but at the center, the narrow channel of water still glides through, quiet and purposeful. Today, there is maintenance to be done. The wooden floodgate just beyond. The southern fork is stuck again, swollen with dampness and the soft encroachment of moss. You crouch beside your father as he wedges a flat stone beneath the latch. He instructs you to press carefully while he taps from the side with a mallet, wrapped in linen, to soften the sound. The rhythm is slow, deliberate. The gate groans slightly, then yields with a low, wet creak. Water slips through the divide, dark and cold beneath the sunlight. The scent of stirred silt rising around you. You feel it in your fingers. This task wood, damp from morning dew, metal cool with age, earth wet and resistant beneath your knees. The work is not glamorous, not recorded in scrolls, but you can feel the importance of it as surely as the sun on your back. A single delay in irrigation might ruin a farmer's entire season. A misjudged flow could crack the edge of a field, dragging soil and roots into the current dot. And so, this small, quiet work becomes something larger than it appears after the gate is secured. Your father steps aside and nods to the far side of the canal. A narrow footbridge stretches across it, nothing more than a few planks bound with rope, but enough. He gestures for you to cross and inspect the alignment of the secondary trench. You take the basket of stones and walk slowly, the bridge creaking softly beneath your steps, the rope rough beneath your hand. On the far side, the view opens slightly. The fields dip lower here, carved into shallow steps. Along each terrace, thin mud barriers hold back the water, just long enough for it to seep in and settle. It is here that the canal splits, one branch flowing toward the barley rows, another toward the groves of date palms that line the southern perimeter of the estate. You kneel by the trench, brushing away fallen leaves and checking the small retaining wall. A few bricks have slipped. You reach for your basket and begin to replace them, one by one, each stone nestled into its gap, secured by hand. The process is soothing. The stones are warm, their texture rough against your palms, their edges shaped by river and time. The scent here is different, richer, deeper. The date palms add a dark sweetness to the air, mingling with the warm aroma of sun-baked earth. A breeze stirs now and then, carrying with it the distant murmur of voices from the village. You cannot make out the words, but their tone is calm, familiar. As you finish your task and rise to your feet, you see your father watching from the far bank. He says nothing, but the slight tilt of his head is enough. Approval, wordless and brief. You nod in return and begin the walk back across the bridge. The water glinting below like a quiet eye that never closes. The sun tilts westward now, and shadows grow longer. Birds return to the reeds, calling to one another in short bursts. You and your father follow the canal back toward home, stopping occasionally to inspect a bend or reposition a stone.